Okay, I'm walking through this little bit of floodplain forest that is just north of Route 20 below campus. And it's a couple of really typical floodplain species right in front of us. I'm going to walk up close. This is a sycamore, an American sycamore. This one's going to be on your tree list in a week or so. It's a floodplain tree. It can tolerate a little bit of flooding in the springtime. Its roots can stay wet. You'll often see it growing along river systems in the Northeast. It's one has pretty distinctive bark. This brownish bark will peel off, and then it reveals this creamy white or green bark underneath. So I'm sure you're all familiar with it. Here's a couple more growing off to the right. The leaves are too high up in the canopy for me to demonstrate here. We'll see some later when we're learning it as one of our trees of the week. The leaves are fairly similar to maple, but yet still distinctive. And so we'll make that distinction clear when we're looking at them a little bit later. Just walking around, and there are some oaks. There's a red oak that I'm looking at now next to the trail. A lot of these trees in the understory are Norway maples. Oh, this one may be a sugar maple. We'll find out. There's a little bit of sap coming out. One, two. This one I think might be a sugar maple in the understory. More sycamores. Much of the shrub layer consists of this species, which is an introduced invasive species called winged euonymus or burning bush. So in a few weeks' time, as the fall progresses, all this foliage will turn a brilliant red. So it's quite attractive as an ornamental plant, but is shading out the native species that might otherwise grow in this floodplain understory. And we'll talk about why some of these things have been able to develop the way they have. So there's a mix of species in here, some of which are traditional floodplain species, and some of them are persisting in this little, what we consider an island, that is only a few feet in elevation higher than the Westfield River. So typically it would flood. So right in front of me, this large diameter tree is a bitternut hickory. There's a basswood behind it and a sycamore. So the basswood typically wouldn't survive the flooding that would happen here. Some rather large oaks, red oaks. This is a black locust. So again, this is a tree that's on your list for week 2, or trees for week 2. Has deeply furrowed, very thick bark. Black locust is a legume, right? So it's a nitrogen fixing plant. So it's in the pea family. It's not typically a floodplain species, but it's able to persist in here for reasons we'll talk about a little bit later. There's some more of those black locusts in here. This cluster of trees in front are basswoods, and so you can see they have these long vertical lines. These are mature basswoods, this cluster. Long vertical kind of continuous lines that will distinguish them from some of the other species like the hickories and the ash that also have vertical lines, but those lines will intersect and form a net-like pattern. The basswood, the lines really don't intersect. They're kind of parallel to each other, running up and down the stem. Again, basswood is not really a floodplain species. It likes moist soils, but not flooding. And again, most of this understory is this burning bush, or euonymus. There's dense thickets of it all through here. And so as one of our lectures coming up, we talk about natural communities, we'll talk about this floodplain forest as a natural community and why this one has been kind of disrupted from fulfilling its potential as a natural community.